Because the whole problem was basically in the 1990s into 1995, and even today, I would say, we don't have a whole lot of really empirical research that exists on elder abuse. First of all, we did come up in our first research with a list of 22 or 27 originally indicators of elder abuse. In other words, saying basically what people were more likely to be victims and what people were more likely to be perpetrators of elder abuse. Most of the relationships, not all, because there is no single indicator that ever is common to all types of abuse and neglect because it's so variable. But one of the things that I did find was they're very often codependent relationships, as in the field of substance abuse. And in fact, substance abuse, I found, particularly of the perpetrators, is one of the major, and it was one of the major, and still is, I think, one of the major indicators of elder abuse. The other thing that I found was the importance of social isolation. And social isolation in terms of different forms. Social isolation, not necessarily because the people lived all by themselves, but they were being kept often isolated by the person who was the perpetrator. And because of the whole issue of family secrets, it's similar to spouse abuse, really, that, you know, the abuse happens between two people, and you could have other people in your life, but you're not allowed to talk about it. And you're kept away from your friends, from community organizations, from helpers. They don't even want you to be involved with other people, and slowly you're very isolated. So that's a very, very important aspect, and it's partly why in my agency now we do, to prevent abuse, we try to combat isolation and get people to be oriented more to other people in the community, etc., and to one another, if you live in buildings or whatever. Because it doesn't mean because you live in one building either, with 100 other people, that you're not isolated. We found people who were dead for a month and nobody knew about it. Also living close to the person who's abused. And this doesn't sound like a big finding, but basically what I found was it's not just, say, a spouse living with another spouse, or, you know, a mother, an older mother living with a son or a daughter. There were sometimes people were divorced from their ex-spouses, and because the person needed care as they got older, they had moved to live closer to them in order to take care of them. So that was very interesting as a dynamic in terms of the living arrangements, which really made the possibility of abuse much more of a risk. In terms of the practitioners, because it makes them more systematic.
Okay.
It gives them more work, but this is the way they see it, that it's more work. It's not really, because each tool takes exactly maybe 2 minutes to fill out. Once you've had your formation, you know how to do it. They see it as work, one more form, and they're already filling out a lot of paperwork. So to some degree it's difficult to get them to do it in the systematic way that I set up, which was whenever somebody comes to the agency, essentially, systematically, everybody should, the tool should be filled out from everybody right from the first phone call.
Okay.
And this is how it was set up in my agency, in CLSC and DG at the time. Now it's the CSSS. But that's the only way I could be sure that we didn't miss anybody. Because somebody could come with a housing problem and not necessarily need home care, and we might miss them. I think it's helped them. I really think it's helped them feel that they have a handle on what to do. Otherwise, they would see it probably, but they would look the other way because they wouldn't know what to do. We had, first of all, the screening and how to determine who is a victim, who is a perpetrator. And it's very well to find them, but what do you do next? So it has to be a whole intervention model, and we set up well, we had a multidisciplinary team right there, so that was already good. We also had, and we set up a small team within the multidisciplinary team of people who were resource people to the multidisciplinary team, so that they could help out, which was a very important thing. And then we set up an interdisciplinary team with people from mental health, from police, from all of the different other departments that we need to help us solve a problem. Not every case goes to that interdisciplinary team. We met once a month. And then it became expanded to Rennes Cassin, and now it's the CSSS. Cavendish has one interdisciplinary team. It's modeled the same way. But that's very helpful to the staff, because they would have very, very complex cases, people, situations, and if they couldn't resolve them within their own team first, they would have to try, and then they could bring it to this other team to bring other expertise. We actually also evaluated all of our interventions. So we also published that article about what was successful and what wasn't successful in terms of the interventions, and we got some surprises. Some of the things that we expected, that everybody was kind of very pro the family support groups, etc., they weren't necessarily the most effective interventions. Sometimes some of the more concrete services were more effective. So I think that's very important to measure. We measured what was successful, what was partially successful, what was non-successful, and what intervention we had but we couldn't do, the strategy, because we didn't have the resources available. So this was very simplistic, one-page thing that we did every 3 months, but on the other hand, it took like 2 minutes to do, but it told you a lot of information at the end of the program.